Hang on. Okay, good. Now I'll just have a quick talk. We're just going to talk about a few. Sorry? No, I've got plenty. Yeah. No, I'm good. Just talk about a few, colour theory, a little very quickly about colour theory. The three terms I use a lot are tone, tint, and shade. So tint is to make it lighter, like so use white. Tone is to use grey to tone the colour down, to dilute its intensity. And shade, obviously, is to put black. Now, black is not always the best colour to use to shade things. With green, we're going to do green today, so it's not a major drama. But hobby paint, black, is actually dark blue, but you can't tell. You've probably seen my lecture before, where I mix this with yellow and we get green. So that proves that this is blue, right? There's no such thing as black. The only thing that's black is ivory black oil paint, which is made from charcoal, or something like that. I think that's the right one. But so you've got your tone, your tint, and your shade. So when you're doing green, you can use black, because green and blue go together quite well. But if you were painting let's say an Africa Corps uniform, who's got a yellow, or British soldier in Africa, they've got a yellow, tan uniform. If you add black to that, you're going to get dark green shadows, right? So that looks horrible. So your best colour to use with yellow for a tan uniform is purple, because it's the opposite on the colour wheel. Because yellow, the opposite two colours are red and blue. Red and blue make purple, right? So you use purple. And purple, you've got three different types of purple. We're talking about bias now. We already heard that term, bias. Every colour on the colour wheel, if you've got red, blue, yellow, they've got a bias one way or the other. And so does purple. Purple is the secondary colour, one of the secondary, orange and green. So purple, this one's got a red bias, obviously. This one's got that one's got the blue bias. Thank you. Blue bias. That's hard to say. That's got a blue bias, and this one's just neutral blue, purple. This is just, I think it's called royal purple.
So is that what they say when they're talking about warm and cold? Is that sort of what
basically. So that's a cool colour. That's a warm colour. It's got red in it. That's got blue. Blue's cool. Red's warm. Right. So, but today we're going. The red colour is more on the complementary colour to olive green. Australian uniform colour, almost, olive green uniforms. Yeah, that colour. So that's the complementary colour to that, right? So that's the colour we need to use. You can use red, because it's got a lot of red in it anyway. So, but this colour here we're going to use only occasionally. It's very good at, once you finish painting your figure, you can add a bit of this. You can make a wash, like a really fine, or a filter, or a transparent coat. Mig Jimenez calls it a filter. Leonardo da Vinci called it transparent painting. So Mig Jimenez didn't think it up, despite his claims. So I always like to stick it up, Mig. But so if you put this over a green uniform, it will dull it down. It'll take some of the intensity out of the green and make it a bit duller and a little bit darker. So it's good. Once you finish, you might want to make some more of the shadows a bit darker under here. You can go under with a really thin coat and do that. That technique is very useful when you're doing faces too. But we'll do faces next month, because faces are normally when I paint a figure. So we'll get to that now. When you paint a figure, the first thing you paint is the lowest thing, the head, and then work your way out. So all the things that are hard to reach. And then and you hold it. Obviously, you've all got the little bases there. I've just cast these up. You can keep them. They're really handy. I like them. They're just resin blocks with holes drilled in the top. The figure's mounted with a little paper clip. It's a straightened out paper clip drilled into the foot and into the base. So he's not coming off. I hope one of them will come off now. Guaranteed. So they're a bit rough. I only cast these up today. There's a bit of flash between the legs still. I didn't get to cleaning up. Just ran out of time. But now, where was I? What was I just talking about? I've lost my train of thought.
You're talking about filters?
Yeah, filters. That's right. Yeah, I've got so many things written down to talk about. But yeah, the filters. Okay, next thing, contrast. With these smaller figures, I tend to, you can paint it to look realistic, but then your contrast level is not going to be very high. You want to go maybe a bit, like the smaller your figure, like you go down to 1/72 scale, you're going to need a higher contrast for people to see any detail at all, or why bother? So, but with a 1/16 scale figure, there's less contrast, unless you really want it. But this one, yeah, you need a bit more contrast in the colours to bring out the detail, the uniform, the straps, the belts, and all, the highlights and the shadows. Oh, get lost. I'll just check who it is. If it's not important, I'll just ignore it. It's my daughter. Hang on, I'll get rid of it. Hey, what's up? I'm doing a lecture in Canberra. I can't talk right now. I'll call you when I'm finished. Okay, all right, bye. Yeah, my daughter's step-grandmother just died this morning, so yeah, I had to answer that. So I'll call her back. She's all right. All right, so now we talk about transparent painting. The whole idea of wet palette is to paint transparently. You don't paint solid colours. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a palette of 5 colours. Your basic green, 1 shadow, 2 shadows and 2 highlights, right? So that's enough for a 35th scale figure. But between each of those colours, we're also going to do a second colour. I didn't bring a pen. Oh well. But between your base and your first highlight, you're going to make another colour here to maybe use to blend. You may not need to do it that much, but there may be a large, and with a deep fold like that, you don't really need to. It's not. But if you've got a bigger fold, here that needs a bit more shading from light to dark, you may need to blend your base or your 2 colours together slightly, and use that with transparent painting. So you use a watered down mixture, and then you just stroke it across. You're going to do little spots. With your little brush like this, you can just do little dots, or you can just do a little strokes across it. And it may take 5 or 6 goes. You go over the whole figure, come back, do it again, go again and again until you're happy that there's a good blending there. And it's not hard to do. So now the main advantage of who hasn't used wet palette before? We've all used wet palette at home? Yeah, okay, so you know how it works. You know what the theory is here. So this will stay wet for days. You've got to put a lid over the top. I use just a piece of plastic sheet and then put my water on top of it. And you come back the next day and it's still usable. It's a little bit wetter usually because it's drawn up as much moisture as it can hold, but it's still workable. So if you're doing a big job or something and you haven't got time, keep going. So now, all right. Yeah, we talked about where to start. So we were talking about where to start here. So normally I do the face first, but since the face is the hardest thing, we're going to leave that till next time. That's all right. So in the meantime, I wanted to make sure everybody had one of these, a lamp, a magnifying lamp. So much easier, or goggles or whatever, to paint the face correctly, because on a 1/35th scale figure with the eyes, we can do the pupil, but you can't do the iris, it's too small. On a 1/16 scale figure, you can do the pupil, the iris, blood vessels, tear duct, the whole lot. It's not hard. And you will mess it up. Usually you've got to paint 2 or 3 times. I'll bring some of my figures next time. I didn't have time today. So we start with the face, and then the uniform, and then lastly all the equipment, the packs, the bags, and things that are higher up. And then very last I do the feet. So in that order. So this one's got a lot of flash in it. So, all right. So I'll mix up a green palette. So I've got you can all start too if you want. We've got a green. That's my medium green. I'm just going to put a big blob in the middle. I'm going to need a lot of this. So about the size of a big pea, or bigger, and a bit extra over here. New South Wales has just scored the first try by the sounds of it.
Does that mean they win? No, it doesn't.
Someone check. What's the score? Anybody?
What's the score? How many games is there in Origin?
3, but we want to win.
How many's Queensland won?
2.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. No, I'm just upset that Igis.
Queensland or
No, I've been watching Wimbledon. Igis Swiatek lost today. Last night. I was unhappy.
What?
No, it looks like a score.
Huh?
Victoria?
It's 6-0 according to the NRL.
To Queensland?
Yeah.
Oh, boo.
Too many
Who let him in?
supporters in his club.
All right, so we've got green in the middle. Now we need, I don't know if you can all see that. I don't want to tip it too much, but we're going to put our basic colours over here. We've got a bit of flesh. Just make a little puddle of flesh. If you've got flesh. Who hasn't got flesh? Everybody got flesh?
This version?
Yeah.
We're all flesh.
Flesh. We'll do, and another one of black. Just a little one on the side. So we need the middle was where we're going to do our palette. Also, white. I could use grey, but we've got black and white now, so that'll do. I've got a brown too. I was going to add a bit of brown. When I do Australian uniforms, I use Australian uniforms in Vietnam typically were very dusty and dirty and had a reddy tone to them, you know, from the dirt. So if you've got well, this is just wood. It's a woody brown. I always add a little bit of that into my basic mix. But it's not going to cooperate today, so fuck that. A lightish brown. Lighter the better.
Saddle brown.
Saddle, yeah. I got beige brown. That'll do. It's fairly light. This one probably won't work.
Pale sand.
Yeah, well, that's probably too light. That'd be good for a highlight. That's probably a bit dark. Doesn't matter. You don't really need it. We're just doing a basic demonstration. Don't really need that colour. Alright, so we've got the green in the middle. Brush for what it is. I'll use a new brush. So what we'll do now is we'll make the first shadow and the first highlight. So just take some of the green that you've got, the big puddle, put a little. You need to be able to make 5 colours, so you need to space it out. So you got your green in the middle, a big blob of green there, and you can use that that's your base colour. It may be a bit dark actually. Mine might be. Just see what the colour is. It's a bit dark. My green might be my first shadow, I think, on this one. All right, so now you've got flesh. Flesh is the most underused colour for figure painting. It's a combination of red, yellow and blue, but mostly yellow and red, and a lot of white. It highlights things without, if you use white, you get a very toned down colour. It tones it right down, or tints it, it makes it really pale. If you use flesh, it still has a bit of vibrancy, a bit of colour to it. So what I'll do now is, so you should have, I want 5 little puddles of green spread out across your palette. So you got your base colour, 2 highlights and 2 shadows. Then I'm going to add some flesh. I'm going to add some, mine's pretty dark. I'm going to add flesh to my base colour in the middle, just to lighten it up a bit. You don't need to put water in it yet, but you can. It's not going to dry out, so don't panic. So if you make your first highlight, you add some more flesh and a bit of white. That looks all right. Oh. Now, then do your last highlight, add a lot more white and a bit of flesh. Now what you'll find, you may have a bit, my second highlight and my first highlight, there's a bit of a gap. So I can add a bit of the, just cross mix them and add a bit of the first highlight to the second highlight. Oh, that actually worked, that's good enough. There we go. Right, then just wash your brush. Now you can do the shadows. Once you've done that, we'll do the shadows. Too much there. So now we'll use the black. Purple? Yeah. Who's got purple? Who's got the violet? Oh, it's like purple. Yeah, if you've got purple, you can put a little. Don't need a lot. If you put, this is better for the second shadow. It's not going to. I should have brought my pin. Screw that. Who's got a pin? Anybody got a pin? No, no pins. All right, no purple today. All right, so we'll just go black. I mean, you can use if you've got the like this one. You've got a set of greens. There's no reason why you can't just use the different shades. But I find this one too dark. So now with the two shadows, just add a little bit of black to your first one and then a bit more black to the second one. You know, make the second one a bit darker, your second shadow even darker. And then have a look at it. You should have a nice... oh, that's got... I need more variation here. Might need to make it light. And my palette's worked out a bit dark, so I'm going to have to lighten it a bit. Whatever, how everybody else. Where's this going? That looks good. What about that one?
Yeah,
should be light.
I didn't go.
Oh,
dark too.
you've
I
gone.
missed this one. Yeah.
You've gone all over the place.
Yeah,
all
all
right.
over the place. Sorry.
That's all right. I might make mine a bit lighter. Since mine's a bit dark, I'm just adding a bit of white to each of them, just to bring it up a bit. Alright, so I've redone mine, that looks a bit better. I won't show you that, that's great. Wider. So they're the 5 colours I've managed to wangle up pretty quickly. It looks a lot lighter on there, his first highlight. So, look, that's what I do. It looks much lighter on here. Paint's always dry darker, I find. Acrylic paint's always dry darker. But the main advantage, as you all can see, is that we don't have to rush this. You can just keep blending, fiddling around with your colours till you get the right shade. Dark. So you can start, once you've got it done, you can start painting just paint the front of his uniform. You don't worry about the whole, you can't paint the back of his uniform, it's all equipment. But just paint the upper body green, the middle green. We'll see what that looks like. But what you can do is put a bit of water in it. Don't use the paint. Mix about 20 or 30% water into each puddle, but especially the base coat. So it's a bit easier. You don't need full strength. You can go half strength. Oh, looks good actually. It always dries darker on paper. This figure I sculpted about a year ago now. Cool. Queensland scored again. I'm just finishing off another couple of figures. They're a radio operator team with the guy with the radio and the officers talking on the radio on the backpack. That was the PCR or PRC? PRC, that's right. I always get that mixed up. I don't know why. But yeah, they look really good. They'll be available in about 2 weeks.
Vietnam era.
Yeah, Vietnam, Australian Vietnam, yeah, figures. If you've got enough base, you can paint the pants as well, may as well. Oh, looks good actually. I'm happy with that now, I've brought it up a bit.
That's everything that you paint.
Just the uniform, don't paint the equipment and stuff, you don't need to. If you get some on the equipment, it doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. Make sure you've got plenty of water in it. I'm using about 50% water. It flows easier, it doesn't clump up. Paint the hat as well. Actually, typically the hats were a lot lighter and had a browning. They got very, very dirty, the hats. So you can, from all the photos that I've seen in colour, the hats didn't look anything like the uniform often. Were they much lighter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So you can do the hat in maybe the first highlight. Typically, I always add a bit of light brown or.
Bleach up.
Sorry?
Bleach.
Yeah, no bleach. I was about to say you could tone it down, add white to tint it, to bleach out the colour as well. Yeah. All right. Another way to add some interest to a green uniform is to paint the pants a slightly different shade to the top. They often were mismatched or not washed as often, and the colours would be different. Or like we said, they fade. And the pants would be probably browner if they're sitting down a lot or kneeling down. So that colour looks better than mine. It's nice and light. Mine's too dark. Yeah, it's too dark. Oh well. I'm a beginner. But you can always lighten it up. I might go over it again with the first highlight. So how are we all going? Are we getting there on the. I'm just going to lighten mine up a bit. It's a bit dark. I can go over, just to lighten it up a bit, just go over the. Shush out there. There's a technique where you can block the colours in. Blocking means just painting certain areas a darker colour and certain areas a lighter colour to start with, or obviously dark areas between the legs or deep creases you can paint a darker colour to start with as well, and then we blend in. There's the guy who does life miniatures, I can't remember his name now, he paints his figures jet black and then highlights everything. He just keeps, has anybody seen his work or his lectures? It's weird, I've tried it, it takes forever. Because you're starting from a black base. So you get nice deep shadows, but he's just constantly highlighting and transparent painting and up and up and up. It takes forever.
I tried doing that sort of thing, but I just didn't have the patience. I've always
Yeah, I know.
like a mid-grey and do it up and up.
Yeah, go in the middle. Yeah, mid-grey, or like if you're painting a white uniform, a light grey. But he's primarily doing busts, so a lot of it is flesh tones as well. So painting a face black, trying to flesh tone it up is quite a complicated process, I reckon.
One argument I heard for doing that sort of thing is that if you miss a spot, it just goes to the shadows.
Well, that's what he said. Yeah, if you get all the dark areas that are hard to get at or are already dark. But that's what I'm talking about. You just block those in at the start, but do lighter where you're going to have your lighter colours. So he's looking better now. I've put him on. But you can use, like, you can hold your figure. You can hold your figure under a light, not a just a single source light, and see where the shadows fall. And then you can decide where you're going to put your shadows.
So once we do the just the base colour, you want us to try and lock in shadows and stuff?
Well, what we can do then, we'll go shadows first. Just do the first shadow, and just look at your figure. Like, you might have a fold that's horizontal. The top, you put the colour. If it's big enough, you can put the shadow at the top of the fold, because the bottom of the fold should be the highlight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? But if you've got a vertical fold, it's not going to be that dark fold. A vertical fold's never as dark as a horizontal fold in the clothing, right? Because it's going to allow more light in. All right, so just consider that when you're doing it. I'm just re-lightening mine. He's a bit dark.
So it's slightly darker on the top.
What? Sorry? Yeah, at the top of the fold, yeah. Or like under his arm. Well, there's no under his arm here on this guy. Or between his legs. It's definitely darker. I like him now. He's starting to look good. That's a better colour. I usually go lighter than this. Yeah, so I've just painted his hat, my first highlight. And then I'll highlight that again with the second highlight on top and around the brim. And use the base or the first shadow to do the shadows. Under the rim of his hat, you'd probably do the second shadow. It's very dark under there. Just when you're doing the first lot of shadowing, remember, make sure the paint's watered down. Because if you put it on thick, you'll have a definite watermark, a line between the base and the first shadow. And you want to avoid lines in the paint that are obvious. It's all right if the crease in the clothing is really harsh. Is that the right word? Yeah, really abrupt, I suppose. But if you've got long flowing folds, like on his legs, there's some flowing folds there. You don't want a too obvious line in the paint, because then it's harder to blend later when we get to the blending stage, which we'll do in a minute. If you've got a good point on your brush, you can keep using a larger brush. I sometimes switch down to my 10-0, a skinny little thing, which is really good because it's long, it holds a lot of paint, and because it's flexible, it also allows you a bit more control in how much pressure you apply. But on the legs on this guy, you could use a slightly bigger brush because the folds are bigger and the shadows and the highlights are larger. But on the upper body, where his pockets are and around his shoulders, there's a lot of little folds on the front. Also where he's rolled up his sleeves, the tiny little folds in his sleeves. You would use a smaller brush to do those. So. Next week we're going to do the face. I see a lot of models at hobby shows around Australia, and the guy will paint a tank and he'll put a figure in it, and he probably shouldn't have bothered. It's really let down. He's done a really nice tank, and then he's put a horrible looking figure in it. And but the most important thing about a figure this size is getting the face right. If you can do a really good face, that'll really bring it, because that's the focal point. It's like anything, you look at the face. It's the thing everyone looks at. And
a good one I heard was just like, think about what people are looking at and put all your attention there.
Yeah.
All the effort into there. So like 50% of your time on the face, 50% of the rest of the world.
Yeah, definitely. The face is where they'll end up. They may look at the gun or something as well, but important features. But the primary feature is the face. It's like when you do a diorama, the human eye goes left to right, like it's reading. So if you're doing a diorama or a scene as well, you want to put the most interesting part of your diorama on the right-hand side, because that's where the eye will end up. The eye will start looking at a diorama from the left and go to the right. And even what you can do if you figure 2 is you can look at it in a mirror, and that reverses it, and you will pick up faults that you didn't see when it was the right way around. Another way to do it is take a photo, put it in computer, blow it up on the computer screen, and flip it over, and you'll get the same result there.
It's actually a thing they actually teach us for doing inspections.
Inspecting what?
Like, so if you're looking for on a technique, so I'm looking for things inside an area that you need back to close to make sure everything's right.
Yeah.
You don't go left to right, you go right to left.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it tricks your brain, you pick shit up looking that way.
Yeah, that you wouldn't pick up looking that way.
If you go that way, you just naturally, I'm just grazing, but if I actually go this way, I'm actually having to think about what I'm looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the same you do, searching for someone or something.
Yeah, you look left to right. So, that wasn't a try, but it was close. I reckon. All right. Yeah, it's pretty bad up there. I'm a Manly supporter, so go Daly Cherry Evans. I think he's overpaid though. Not exactly. It's a shame New South Wales wasn't at full strength though. We were missing. What's that guy from Souths, the halfback? Can't remember his name. The South.
I don't know, I was just going to give up.
I know, but no, we were missing both our halfbacks, and friggin' Tom Travojevic busts his shoulder in the first tackle. So that kind of sucked. So that made it hard. Never mind. All right, how are we all going? Yeah. like if you're doing folds and they look a bit too dark, you can always come back over it with one of the lighter shadow or even the base colour with a very toned down colour. Yeah, sorry, watered down, and just lighten it a little bit. That's not hard to do. I tried to find the original one I painted today and thought I'd bring it with me, but I can't find it. I think it's at a hobby shop in Goulburn. I loaned them a whole bunch of my figures. And it's a bit dark, isn't it?
Yeah.
The hot to start with. Because I lightened mine up. Mine was like your colour.
All right.
I lightened it up.
It's new at the field.
Yeah, yeah. I think where I've got him now is okay.
All right. That's my excuse. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, keep pedaling that.
That's too much. You've got too much fluid in there.
Too much fluid.
Where his elbow is, get rid of all that fluid. It's like a wash nearly. When you put the paint on your brush, wipe it off. Load the brush up and then do that.
Right.
Get most of it off, so there's not too much paint because you'll pin wash it. It'll just flow off the brush and go everywhere. So you need to keep it to a minimum. You're not trying to do a wash. You're trying to do transparent painting. So you're just laying on a very thin coat. You may have to come back and do it 2 or 3 times because each time you do it, it'll build it up a little bit, make it a little bit darker, even though you're still using the first shadow. All right? You may have to do it a couple of times.
I definitely need going over it a few times just to get the consistency.
Yeah. You need to keep the paint watered down as much as not too much. 50% is good. And from there you can correct later. On his upper body, you don't have to be too careful with the shadows because it's the highlights that you're gonna in the folds that are going to bring it to life, and they'll cover up any mess that you've made when you've put on the shadows anyway. You can nearly just paint the top upper body in the first shadow, really. Might save time because the folds are so tiny and close together. So there's 2 different ways you can do it. You can do your first shadow and then your second shadow, or I prefer to go first shadow, first highlight, so you get a bit of a balanced look, and gives you a better idea of where you're heading. And then do the second shadow, which is the really deep shadows, and then the second highlight last. And you can still come back and do a third highlight if you're really thinking on a few certain spots, like on the shoulders, tops of the shoulders. Anything that's pointing straight upwards is particularly quite light. Anything pointing straight down can be almost dark, almost black. Looks good actually. There's too many lights. I'm getting reflections from every light.
Does it bring a lot?
No, but the roof. The roof lights are reflecting in my thing, and I can't. Yeah, you don't have to be too accurate with the folds at all, you know, the shadows at all, because we can blend them in later. And just really blocking the colours in. Just make sure it's watered down so it's not too strong still. Yeah, so if I'd have gone that dark, I would have started again. But don't have time to restart tonight. Because you see I thought my colour was too dark. But
Yeah,
yeah. You probably could have painted him with that colour. Is that what you did?
no, I painted it up.
Yeah, because that's a bit dark. Yeah, I would have painted him with that one. Or, and then maybe next time, do it. Try it again at home and do it lighter, much lighter. Because like I said, they tend to dry darker. They even dry darker than they are on the palette sometimes, which can be really annoying. You don't have to do the whole figure, just do the front if you want, and we want to get through the last couple of stages before we have to pack up. So. Who signed up for next year's class? Has anybody? I've got 6 people already signed up for next year.
Next year.
Yeah, we're gonna. Well, I don't know how many. I've got us down for 4 or 5 months, of this, but we might be able to bring it. Next week we're going to do faces. The month after, we can do all the equipment, the boots, weathering, leather, things like that. And then the 4th month I was going to do like a large scale thing, like a bust, painting the face on a bust. That'll test you out. That's fun. That'll see how good you are. Doing the eyes on a bust. I'm going to start, I'll do my first highlights and then maybe show you all. Second.
What do you mean when you say highlight? What's that, a lighter? That's the lighter colour.
Yeah, the lighter. Your first highlight or your second highlight. I'm using my second highlight because I painted him in the first highlight. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to have to go up.
So where do you put the highlights in?
Well, on the tops, on the tops of the
On
creases.
the things that shines down.
Yeah, basically. Like I said, if you've got a horizontal fold, you do it at the bottom of the fold because it's facing up. If you've got a vertical fold, like this, just do it across the top or whatever. I did a figure a couple of months ago, and I did look with the light coming like at 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and the light's coming at about nearly 90 degrees. It was the face actually. It was doing the face. So one side of the face was really light, and the other side was really dark, to try and imply that the sun was over there. And it worked. It came out all right. It's the first time I've tried that kind of. It's called directional. And it looked all right. Just have to root.
I've been trying to do that with the before I paint do the airbrush. I'll try and do the lighting with like white ink. So I'll prime it like a dark grey, and then I'll come out with the airbrush and try and figure out the direction of the lighting. And then when I have characters with like lightsabers, like here, like is it like try to add it on and stuff like that with the airbrush. Huh? Yeah, the object source lighting, the xenophone and all that. Not necessarily xenophone. Get the what do you call it, the value sketch or something you call it?
Yeah.
Just try to get the lighting figured out before I start the actual and half the time I end up like painting over the lighting anyway, but because I've done it I kind of know where I want to put the colours.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes when you're painting your first highlight, on his upper chest, just where his first button is, there's a lot of little thin folds just in here. So if you try to paint straight down, you might miss and go into your crevice, into the recess. So you're better off maybe brush at 90 degree angle and slide it down, almost like you're trying to dry brush it. That way you can't screw up. It'll sit on top of the fold and won't fall off the fold.
Can't screw up, hold my beer.
Yeah. You still will, but yeah. But it just depends where it is and if you can get at it.
Funny how it splits. It goes the white, the highlight of beige, the second highlight of white.
Yeah.
It splits and it goes pretty dark. That's why I mix it back together. So whether the green.
Okay. Well, I'm not used to AK paint, so I don't know how they behave.
Yeah, well, if it's sitting there like that, it's fine.
Yeah.
But you leave it for a minute, it splits out.
It starts to separate. The colours separate.
Oh, like I use it for like detail stuff.
Yeah. And it made you answer some contests or one like the entire like thing saying like there's a fun or something.
Yeah.
So he's being these guys. But he doesn't do the contest as much.
Only the ones on the tank.
Somebody comes out. I think so. What kind of soldier is this? Like this
Australian infantryman, Vietnam, probably mid to late. Oh, going by the pack, I think it's late. It's like 1969, 70. It's a later version pack, I think. On there. So, has anybody tried starting to blend? There's not a lot on the upper body you need to blend. The folds are very sharp.
Yeah,
so you don't really need to. It's on the pants that you will need to blend.
Yeah, I found with the shirt that when it did the highlights, there wasn't really much room to blend.
Yeah, there's not, unless, it's impossible.
I am intending to do it over the pants, more or less.
Yeah, you can, yeah. So you can take a bit of your, the two colours that you need to blend, make a secondary little puddle of paint, water it down even more, and then just, like I said, you might have to go over it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
4 or 5 times to get it to work, but it'll come together.
This one we can get the point down. So try to keep the pupils on it. She's got some like tattoos on her face that I like what I do is I say this is like a brush. So I say this say with my brush. So I say this for like really fine detail stuff. And I do as much as I can. So it's like you're going to just print 3 brushes every time. So the beige stuff always nice. How's the other one?
It's good.
What's your thought being actually?
Yeah.
Just use this brush to drag the oil over the top and then use some rag to wipe it and then maybe start with some pencil.
We're just going to start the raffle.
Sorry?
We're going to start the raffle.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we'll be quiet. All right.
Do a lot of shortcuts with oil. It's very convenient.
Where's Carl?
You know your eyes are going when you go up, you're like,
Right, everyone will draw the raffle
Yeah.
tickets
Can't see.
and also announce People's Choice winners.
sorry, that might be the winning ones.
We're raising money for hearing aids here. You get a bit old.
I've got you hanging shit on John.
With the
Or even
top,
we shake you by your ankles, you might have enough for them anyway.
Time.
It's too stuff to go
I'll quickly, with the upper body, where the folds are really sharp,
Yeah.
what could be better is to paint the paint it a
no
lighter
worries. So,
colour,
People's Choice tonight again, I think it's
and then
19,
just
so it's close
stroke
to
in the
record,
shadows,
not equal, so
because they're in the
well done for
recesses. It
everyone
might
that,
be, it's a lot easier
has
that
been
way.
building and has brought their stuff in. There's some cracking stuff up the back as well, so thanks for that. Third place tonight was Greg with his post-op debrief with some small biplane, Italian biplane. So well done, Greg, with your salute. Second was Nathan Bradford with his Tamiya F35A. And first is Cole Stockman with his S70B Seagull.
Yeah, that was sick. Yeah,
Got a $30 voucher for
Was that at Wollongong?
toy bolt, so you can't grab that.
The Seahawk, was that at Wollongong show? I think that won.
No, yeah, I
No?
just finished it.
Oh, okay. Somebody won it with a great big aircraft at Wollongong.
I think it was
And we'll jump into the raffle, so big raffle tickets for us.
Was it? What was it? Was it a Raptor? No, I can't remember.
First one's purple, Deep to Delta 45.
Oh, what did you win?
Was that a yes? Oh, Paul.
That's not fair. Redraw.
Can't leave the table in the middle of the session. Disqualified? All right, I don't know, how's everybody going down this end?
Maybe one get redraw. Purple D43.
Damn.
That's all right. That's mine. I would have mine.
Green ticket, B for Bravo 65.
Yeah, like I said, you could do the highlights on the upper body.
Yep.
You know, do it lighter, and then just lay in the little, because the creases are really fine. Just get, just lay the creases in
blue
with
ticket,
this brush. Have
B
you got a
for
smaller
Bravo
brush than that, or
It's about the smallest.
thinnest one? Yeah. Yeah. Try and get one of these. Try that. Do that. Use that one. I've got a few more here.
Blue 60.
It's a 10-0, isn't it? It's a 10-0. Just try it.
Redraw.
Oh, they're nice, aren't they? Thanks. I need one of those. It's only got 5 wheels. I want the 6
Green
wheel version.
ticket, B for Bravo 71.
That's a lot easier, that brush.
Oh, yeah.
So go to Eckersley's and grab one.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a crap out.
That's a
Black
10-0.
ticket, D for Delta.
Just remember 10-0.
10-0.
10-0, yeah. Don't get a 20-0, they're longer.
Right.
They're even longer again. That's I got a 20-0 here. I think it's freaking horrifying. No, I didn't bring it because I don't like it. Oh, there it is. No, there's. Oh, no, it's a 5-0. It just means it's thicker.
Orange
It's
ticket.
heavier. So 10-0 is thinner.
Is thinner.
The 20-0 is thinner again and a little bit longer again. It's really
Right.
weird.
Okay.
It's really horrible. But the 10-0 I find is a good size.
Yeah.
I used to get 5-0s in Wollongong and they were shorter. They were shorter like this.
Yeah.
But they're a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
But this one's quite fine. Show me what you've got. Yeah. So
Blue
just need.
ticket, B for Bravo 65.
I think you've made the base coat too wet, like too watery.
Yeah.
You can still see the grey through it.
Yeah.
You need is that one mine? Yeah, that one's mine. Have a look. So I got a nice solid base coat, and then lightened it up, and then just did the shadows, the lines in the upper uniform. At this point, I haven't done his pants yet. I just haven't started on that. Really?
Yeah, it's too, it's a bit light on the first one.
Yeah, because often.
Thanks everyone
Well,
for participating in the raffle and attending tonight. Good crowd, so
I
thanks
painted
very
the base
much,
coat
and
3
see you again
times.
in August. Thanks.
3 times to get it to so it's nice and uniform. Oh shit! So one did come. You did that on purpose.
I've got the one.
Where did you come off?
Go back to work.
So what did you go through?
Yeah. So you need to. Where's mine? Is that mine? Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah.
See how I've put the shadows? Like I've got a nice base coat built up.
Yeah.
Then I made the upper portion of his body like first or second light actually,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to go back again and relay in the shadows into those little creases. But you need, which brush are you using?
No, you meant yours.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah. That's your ideal brush for this kind of work. You know, to get those little lines
Yeah.
in the clothing, in the folds, that's the brush you need. So go to Eckersley's and get one.
Yeah.
You know, because it's really it's impossible with those brushes. It's just too thick. There's too much. There's too much there. And I'll still work on this. I'm going to do a bit. You know, still got more to go on that.
I need to just.
Yeah, I would paint it lighter. Redo the whole chest area lighter,
Yep.
I work with it.
and then just lay in the shadows into those folds. That's the best thing with that. But when you get to the pants, you can do different colours.
That was good, but they're gone.
Are we taking these home, or do you collect the classes working?
Sorry.
Are we taking the models home?
Yeah, take your figure home and
Homework?
keep.
Also, guys, there's some Hysterix figures down there. So if you want to grab a packet.
Yeah, they're free apparently.
Yep.
They're about 70 years old. It could be worth a lot of money.
70.
No, 1970s, yeah. They could be worth some money. Somebody might want one for their collection. Who knows? You never know.
That's
Light
right
my
enough.
skirt up, but sure.
Yeah.
So you've got water down, and that keeps it, the water down in there, and that keeps it from drying out.
There's underneath this paper towel.
Yeah.
Where is it? I haven't got any left. Oh, here, this stuff.
Yeah, just normal paper towel.
And then greaseproof paper on the top. And the whole theory is that as long as there's paint on top, paint's too thick to go through the greaseproof paper.
Oh, yeah.
The water isn't. So the paint, this paint here, all these little puddles of paint, as they're drying, which is acrylics dry really fast,
Yeah.
they keep sucking more moisture up
Oh,
to
right.
maintain the wetness.
And you still reckon that's better than using, say, enamels?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
right.
Enamel smells for a start. But and you water them quicker. Yeah, you can water these down. Like,
Oh, and it comes straight back. Look at that.
yeah, see?
Yeah.
That was getting a little dry, but you can just water it down as much as you want. Then,
And you've left that overnight and it hasn't dried out?
yeah, no, I just put a lid over it as well,
Oh,
because
yeah, right.
the water will evaporate
Of course.
eventually.
Yeah.
So I've watered that down. It was about 60-70% water,
Yeah.
and then you just go, because it's so watered down too. It doesn't put too much paint on it. You don't want too much.
Mm.
You just want it's called transparent painting, where you just gradually build up the shades
Yeah. No, that's really cool.
where it's lighter. Because every time you do it, it'll get a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Like I've already done.
Oh, yeah,
I've
I
done
see
his
that.
shoulder pads.
Yeah.
I've done his shoulder pads like 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah, right.
I'll show you. What do you call that? Cut
The
blades.
epaulets, yeah.
Cuffs. Yeah, I just-
So you got any good tricks for eyes? Because eyes. are the
I'm
thing
doing
that kills
figures,
me.
doing eyes next week.
Oh, are
Yeah,
you?
it's like when
Yeah.
Damn it! I
You
won't
need
be.
one of these brushes.
Yeah.
10-0. So you can get right in there. And
Oh, because that's
Do a
got a whole
black
lot of
dot.
paint. Where do you get those brushes from?
that's from Eckersley's
What is that?
in town.
Oh,
there's
really?
there's free Eckersley's.
Yeah. I've seen them. Okay.
The art stores.
And you get them there, right?
Yeah, they've got them, yeah. Just ask them for a liner brush or a sign writing brush or a 10-0. One of those three.
Yeah. Okay.
Something will twig with them.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's the Neef. It's Neef.
Oh yeah.
Neef, and they're white. They're these.
Oh yeah.
But they're Neef.
Okay.
Neath 10-0. And yeah, it's good because then you can also paint like in the in the crevices, which are really fine on this figure. Just water it down. So we've been doing this for an hour and it's still working.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I can get into. I usually put my head under the lamp, but
of course.
but you can get into all this little tiny.
Okay. Yeah, wow, that's good. Yeah, that brush is amazing.
Yeah, it makes life so much easier.
Mm.
Get one of these.
You'll be able to paint individual hairs on the dude's arm.
Well, I can do on a larger scale figure. You can do the eye, the iris, and the pupil, and the blood vessels and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and the tear duct in the corner.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
you
that's
can do
amazing.
a lot. Yeah, yeah.
That's really good.
It's really easy. We're going to do another. You can always join in next, or you're not here next month, but we're going to do this again next year as well.
Yeah, okay.
Or maybe again later in the year. But see, I'm just putting that. That's quite dark, but because it's so thin, as it dries,
Kind of blending back into the.
yeah, it'll soften.
Yeah.
It looks dark now, but it'll.
Yeah, once all the water evaporates out.
Yeah,
it'll-
it loses its. Yeah, it blends in a bit.
It's cool. Sorry, what's your name?
David.
David.
Cisco?
Just getting in there.
And you've what?
And you don't have to be too accurate. I'm just kind of rough on this end.
And you've cast these?
Yeah, they're mine. I sculpted this and painted it. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, like in larger areas like this part here, it's facing down. So you get I can still use this narrow brush.
Oh,
Go
just
like that.
sideways, yeah.
Paint sideways.
Nice.
So that's blocked in. It's probably too dark actually. But as it dries, it might lighten up a bit. You see, I probably shouldn't use that one now. But I can go over it.
Oh, yeah, with the lighter one, because it's so thin, yeah.
Yeah, I can just, yeah, it's a bit dark.
And you just keep building that to the colour you want anyway. So
Yeah,
it doesn't
and then
matter, yeah.
see how I've got that should be a bit darker there too. But where there's a line, like there, what I do is that's that colour now. So I grab that colour and let's try it out a bit. Grab this lighter colour, mix them together, and then just go.
Oh, yeah, put a blend line in.
Yeah,
I
just,
see.
you may have to do it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, yeah.
Just go around anywhere where you want to.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
very
Yeah, it
nice.
takes a bit of time. You may have to do it 3 or 4 times, but
But it's worth it.
yeah, it'll come together. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming, right? It's coming, right? It takes about 2 or 3 hours to paint.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
3 or 4 or 5 hours to paint a figure like this to a really high quality.
Yeah.
You've still got to do all the equipment, the face. The face could take an hour or 2 hours
Yeah.
just by itself.
Yeah.
Because you've got the eyes, 5 o'clock shadow,
Yeah.
the shading, the hair. There's a lot more
Ears,
to it than
everything,
looks and meets the eye. That's pretty good. That's where I'm at so far.
That's cool.
Thanks for
Thanks,
running
mate.
the.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, your base coat.
Yeah, I did it 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you just do it once?
I
Or?
just did it once.
Yeah, you need to get a nice solid coat.
Yeah.
So yeah, because it's thinned down, you need to do it a couple of times to get it right. To get it, and then like I said on the upper body, here I did this. I did it all highlight. I did it a lighter shade, and then just picked out. I'm just starting to pick out the shadows because the brush will go into those. My little
crevices.
my little thin brush goes into the little crevices quite well.
I've got one of those. It's a little bit thicker, but it's sort of 10.
It's still all right. It's still all right, but probably a bit. This would be better.
Yeah, but I used actually this.
It's a bit long. It's hard to get the control. I think
Yeah.
sometimes a bit too long,
Yeah.
and the other one's too short.
What's the make of this?
It's neath.
Neath.
Yeah, 10-0.
10-0.
Yeah, go and grab a couple.
Okay.
Makes life so easy.
Yeah.
I've been painting figures like this for 20, 30 years, and
Wow.
to the standard, and this is the best brush I've ever found. And they last forever because the paint very rarely gets right up into the tip.
Get into.
into the into the bottom of the. Because once it gets in there, your brush is kind of screwed.
Yeah.
You can always wash these in. I always wash them in acetone. Right. Every now and again, it gets all the crusty paint that's in the butt, right up in the neck, gets it all out. But after you've done that, I dip it in. I stroke it through some Vaseline, to get the, because acetone will dry the brush out. It's very dry, and it's like an alcohol kind of thing, and it makes the brush very dry and brittle. So you need to wet it. It's also a good idea if you know you're not going to use your brushes for a while, put them in Vaseline. Put a bit of Vaseline on them and just wipe most of it off.
Yep.
And you just leave them, because it'll keep the tip together. It'll keep it all pointed, all in one, instead of a thing sitting there going.
And then how do you clean them before?
Well, that's terps. That's
use-
terps time. Yeah,
Right.
a bit of terps or
Okay.
acetone, or something like acetone or terps will get it off.
Yep.
Well, actually, Vaseline's water-based, isn't it? Well, I usually use
No,
Petroleum.
petroleum. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you can either use acetone or terps to get it off. Acetone will dry quicker. If you want to use your brushes straight away, your acetone will dry in about 20 seconds, whereas you've got terps on your brush, you're going to have to wait for a while for it to evaporate.
So, asking for a mate, if you, if you put IPA isopropyl on your brush, you won't damage the bristles.
Not really, I don't think so. It's again, alcohol's dry like acetone.
Yeah.
It'll dry it out fast. But
I might have been using IPA last night to thin different brush. So I was using it to thin some volatile chrome.
oh, yeah. Right.
That's the only stuff I found that actually works.
Yeah.
But I've got a brush that's one of these, an older one of these.
Yeah.
I use for anything that's chemical, a bit more strong than just water.
Yeah. Well, I have a separate set of brushes for metallics as well.
Yeah.
You should always do that, because there's always going to be one fleck of silver, and it comes off onto your finger, and you go, screw it. And also separate brushes for enamels. But I don't use enamels that much. The only time I use enamels is if I'm trying to build up a colour, a base coat really quickly, like a white. If I'm painting a white figure, that's like a white knight or something.
Do you use oils?
Yeah, you can use oils very much like transparent painting. Really good on horses, because you got very flowing light to darks.
Are they easier to blend?
Yes. Yeah, but again, you water them down. There's two different ways you can do it. I'll do a horse one day for you as well, with oils. It's oils. You can use as transparent painting, where you just thin it down with linseed oil or whatever, and put it on, and then dry brush it in. But the original term dry brushing was where you would, like if you were painting a big oil painting, and let's say you had a face that was this big, like a head, the head was this big. You could just, or even smaller, but you could just put a bit of colour here, say under the head, and then just get an old brush and just rub it in, a dry brush and rub it in, and it blends it in, blends the edges.
Have you tried those dry brushes? Do you reckon they're worth it?
I haven't. I've got a sable. I've got a new sable here. I've got this little sable brush, a dry brush.
Yeah, okay.
But that's a fillet.
It's coming in.
Yeah,
It's
I've
a
got
fillet
one
brush.
now.
You got a fillet? It's rounded.
Yeah, I bought
Top rounded?
all these brushes during the pandemic when I was sitting at home pulling the whatever. I bought all these different brushes to try different things with. Just trying to one day grow up and be a figure painter. But
Yeah, you got fillets. And you got your angle one there.
all those black-handled ones, those SMS ones there.
Yeah, that's
Sable.
fillets are better than sable, because the sable's got a flat top, and it puts too much pressure on the sides.
Yeah.
Whereas a fillet is round top, and it puts less pressure on the edges.
Yeah.
And you can also use it. You can turn it at 90 degrees and use it as a flat brush like that.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get. There's different ways you can use a fillet. Fillets are great. That's what the old, in the old days, the Oh, how are we all going? Are we?
I was talking to playing around with this too.
We probably need to pack up soon. I think they want us out.
Playing with that.
Question.
Yes.
So when you were talking about blending,
Yes.
how are you specifically doing the blending? So you're putting your first.
You're actually not. Well, you're not disturbing the colours there. You can't.
Okay.
It's not oil paint. You can't.
No, that's what I was.
So they're there. So what you got? You got your first shadow and your base. So
Yep.
and there's a line here. So you take both, make another colour, on the palette. I've done one just here. Just made a second colour. It's only little,
Yep.
but I've taken a bit of that, a bit of that. So now I've got a colour that's in between these two. It's not very noticeable there. Then what you do is you just,
So you're just painting that on there.
yeah, then you just, wherever the edge is, you just dab it, water it down even more.
You're right.
And you may have to do it 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
But gradually that will, that's a transparent painting part of the process. And you can either just do little dots, especially on a face, it's very effective around these areas where you just do little dots. Or if it's a long fold, you can just stroke it down.
Because I was waiting for that.
And just let it dry. Like you go over the whole figure, and by the time you finish the whole figure, you come back to where you started. You go, oh, I need to do that bit again. You know, just touch it up again.
You're right, can.
So,
No, I can, but you can't afford it. That's usually what I say.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, how much do you charge? I'm like, mate,
Coverage a bit better now?
You're right, man.
whereabouts on the?
And the trousers and the top. Maybe not the top, trying to make the top a bit lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, keep doing it. Keep more. You need more. It's still, you can still see the grey through it.
Yeah.
the only way now it wouldn't be a machine, it would just be
Often what I do is the first coat I put on will be fairly thick to get some colour on there, and then thin it down a little bit, then put another coat,
That's not true.
and then let it dry, and then maybe do a third coat. Like I had 3 coats on that, and the last one was fairly light.
The dude I worked with for like 12 months.
I'm using Andrea. What do you got? You got Vallejo. Vallejo is notoriously translucent.
Any other reason than I just...
A lot of Vallejo colours you can see straight through
I built
them.
a couple for gift.
They're not
Like
that
a
great.
Wessex for a mate of mine.
Well, I use the Andrea colours, and they're very, very, very good
Yeah,
colour.
need to
Very
do
good.
the top here, just a bit different. Yeah, no, that's alright, I'm happy with that.
Cement
I
sheet.
just need to give the top a bit more of a wash.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be an all-nighter.
Yeah, well, there we go. This is
Well, I'll leave until we're done.
as a gift, right? And the removal of
Excellent, thank you.
But yeah, you can, like I said, you highlight the top.
Yeah,
If you
I
first,
will, I want to go home.
yeah, go home and practice over
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next month and come back, bring it back next month. We'll see how it
Yeah,
looks.
yeah,
But get a nice, good, solid coat on there
yeah.
first, and then you
Yeah, I'm
can.
wary of putting too much colour on the first. I'd rather go thinner.
Well, you do 3 or
and
4
build it
thin
up.
layers,
Yeah,
3 or 4 thin layers to get on, because otherwise it gets clumpy,
Yeah.
and it can eliminate your detail. It'll clump in the corners, whereas the water will evaporate. So you don't want to clump it up too
Yeah,
much.
no, that's cool. No, thank you very much.
Yep.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave.
All right, if anybody wants to pack up, you're more than welcome. We're going to probably pack up soon anyway. I think we need to get out.